Why Mali is suddenly looking like Dubai in 2026. This is a gold refinery rising out of the dirt on the edge of Bamako. Once finished, it alone will be able to process 200 tons of gold a year, worth roughly $130 billion. And this isn't the only thing being built. Mali is sitting on some of the richest lithium deposits on Earth, and in the last 18 months, it's turned that ground into 2 working mines feeding the global battery industry. So here's the real question. Is Mali actually becoming West Africa's version of Dubai? Or is this just clever branding on top of a mining boom? Let's find out. The old story everyone knew. For decades, the story of Mali's resources was painfully simple. Dig the gold out of the ground, ship it abroad raw, and let refineries in the UAE, Switzerland, and South Africa capture almost all the value. Since 1980, that was the pattern. Mali mined the gold. Someone else got rich turning it into bars. Assimi Goïta, who took power in a 2021 coup and has since pulled Mali away from France and toward Russia, has said plainly that this pattern was never sustainable and that it's time for Mali's gold to stop leaving the country as raw ore. It's a pattern that shows up across the whole Sahel right now. Burkina Faso and Niger have both revised their mining codes in the same direction, forcing more local processing and demanding bigger equity stakes for the state. But Mali is the country actually pouring concrete on a refinery capable of running at continental scale. And that's what makes this moment worth paying attention to. The refinery that changes the math. That's exactly what the Senyu Gold Refinery, under construction just outside Bamako, is designed to fix. It's being built through a partnership between the Malian state, which holds 62%, and the Yadrin Group, a Russian industrial conglomerate, holding the remaining 38%. When complete, the plant will have the capacity to refine 200 tons of gold annually, roughly quadruple Mali's current output, which means it's designed from day one to also process gold coming in from neighboring producers like Burkina Faso. At the groundbreaking, Goïta called it a long-awaited dream finally becoming real, and said the plant would let Mali refine everything mined on its own soil instead of shipping it out raw. No completion date has been announced yet, but the ambition behind it is clear. Turn Bamako into a refining hub for the entire region, not just a mining site for someone else's industry. Yadrin's own leadership has been explicit about this ambition. The company's president, Irek Salakov, described the plant as designed to become a regional processing center, not just for Mali's own gold, but for output from neighboring countries too. That's a significant claim. It would mean gold mined in Burkina Faso or elsewhere in the region could eventually be refined on Malian soil instead of being flown out to Dubai or Zurich, keeping the processing margin, the jobs, and the tax revenue inside West Africa for the first time in the modern mining era. Where the gold money is actually going. It's not just about building a shiny new plant. The government has also started redirecting mining revenue directly back into the country. In March 2026, at a ceremony inside the Kuluba Presidential Palace, Goïta personally distributed $33 million in mining revenue to communities located in and around active mining zones, with the rest split between regional administrations and non-mining areas through an equalization mechanism designed to spread the benefits more evenly across the country. That money flows through what's called the Local Mining Development Fund, and if gold prices keep holding near record highs, officials expect that fund to keep growing. Think about what that ceremony actually represents. For most of Mali's independent history, mining communities saw almost none of the wealth extracted from underneath them. Gold left in trucks, and what came back was, at best, a handful of local jobs and some corporate social responsibility programs run by the mining company itself. A president personally handing out checks inside the presidential palace, with the money split between mining zones, regional governments, and non-mining areas through a formal equalization formula, is a very different kind of relationship between a state and its own resource wealth, even if $33 million is still a modest number against the scale of Mali's total mineral exports. There's also been a harder edge to this shift. Barrick, the Canadian mining giant that has operated in Mali for years, had one of its major gold mines placed into administration, effectively bringing it under state control after a dispute over taxes and revenue sharing. Whatever you think of how that played out, it sent a clear signal to every foreign mining company still operating in the country. The era of exporting Malian gold on old, lopsided contracts is ending. The lithium boom nobody saw coming. Here's the part of this story that genuinely surprised global markets. Mali wasn't supposed to be a lithium country. And then, almost overnight, it became one of the most closely watched lithium producers on the entire continent. The Goulamina mine, operated by China's Ganfeng Lithium, with the Malian state holding a stake, began commercial production in December 2024 and is now pulling out around 506,000 tons of spodumene concentrate a year, with plans to eventually scale toward 1 million tons annually. This is one of the largest lithium deposits ever discovered, with an estimated mine life stretching past 2 decades, and Ganfeng's own projections put its internal rate of return near 98%, a genuinely staggering number for a mining project. Then came Buguni, Mali's second lithium mine, backed by China's Hainan Mining Group and operated through Kadal Minerals, which reached first production in February 2025 and was formally inaugurated by Goita himself in November of that year. Together, these two mines have made Mali, almost out of nowhere, one of Africa's most consequential sources of the raw material every electric vehicle and battery factory on the planet is racing to secure. Industry estimates put Mali's spodumene exports for 2026 somewhere between 600,000 and 800,000 tons. And under the mining code passed in 2023, the state now holds meaningful equity stakes in these projects, rather than just collecting a small royalty and watching foreign companies take the rest. The revenue numbers behind Goulamina alone are hard to ignore. Estimates put the mine's annual contribution to Mali at somewhere around 100 billion CFA francs, close to $160 million a year, with local subcontracting rules requiring Malian companies to capture at least 51% of contracting work on site. Buguni, still smaller, has already generated tens of millions of dollars in early revenue since its first shipments. Neither mine is a Gulf-sized oil field, but together they've turned Mali, a country most commodity traders had never even considered a lithium play 3 years ago, into a real line item in global spodumene supply forecasts for 2026. The skylines, the water, and the roads. None of this stays locked inside a mine site. Mining revenue is starting to show up in daily infrastructure. In Bamako, the Bamako Water Supply Project has been extending water towers and pipe networks out to the right bank of the Niger River from Kabbalah, bringing running water to areas that never reliably had it. Road and transport funding has picked up as well, part of a broader regional pattern across the Sahel where mining income is being redirected into basic services instead of disappearing into foreign accounts or opaque contracts. This is the part that actually earns the Dubai comparison, at least partially. Dubai's transformation was never just about oil. It was about a state deliberately recycling resource income into visible, modern infrastructure that changed how the rest of the world saw the country. Mali's government appears to be trying to run a version of that same playbook: gold and lithium instead of oil, state equity instead of pure royalty extraction, and a public communication strategy built around ceremonies, groundbreakings, and presidential visits designed to make sure citizens actually see where the resource money is going. There's a psychological dimension to this too, and it's worth naming directly. Dubai's rise wasn't only an economic story, it was a branding exercise, a deliberate campaign to make the rest of the world associate a small desert emirate with ambition, modernity, and money. Every groundbreaking ceremony in Mali right now, the refinery, the lithium mines, the water towers, is being filmed, photographed, and broadcast with exactly that same intent. Whether or not the underlying economic transformation ever matches Dubai's scale, the government clearly understands that the story it tells about its own resource wealth matters just as much as the resource wealth itself. The honest gaps in the story. Now, here's where we have to slow down, because turning mining revenue into a Gulf-style economic miracle takes a lot more than 2 lithium mines and a refinery still under construction. Mali's economy remains heavily dependent on rain-fed agriculture, and the World Bank projects real GDP growth averaging only around 5% over 2026 and 2027. Solid for the region, but nowhere close to the kind of explosive growth Gulf states saw during their oil booms. Poverty has barely moved, sitting close to 36% of the population as of the most recent estimates. The security situation is still genuinely difficult. In September 2025, armed groups disrupted fuel supplies into Bamako by targeting tanker convoys, a stark reminder that insecurity can still choke the capital's economy at any moment. Mali also has some of the highest electricity costs in the region, and the state utility, Electricité du Mali, remains financially fragile, with power outages still a regular part of daily life, even in the capital. You cannot build the next Dubai on an unreliable power grid, and everyone running these mining and refining projects knows it. There's also the question of who actually captures the biggest share of the upside. Ganfeng and Hainan Mining, the Chinese companies behind Goulamina and Buguni, still hold majority stakes in both projects, with Mali's state share sitting in the 30 to 35% range. The gold refinery leans the other way, with the state holding the larger 62% stake, but its Russian partner, Yadrin, is providing the technical expertise and long-term maintenance the plant will depend on to actually function. In other words, foreign capital and foreign technical know-how are still deeply embedded in almost every one of these flagship projects. What's changed isn't that Mali has cut foreign partners out entirely. It's that the terms of those partnerships now tilt further toward the state than they used to under the old mining contracts signed decades ago. So is it actually Dubai? Not yet, and probably not for a long time, if ever. What's real is this. Mali has gone from a country that dug up resources and watched the value walk out the door, to a country actively building the domestic infrastructure to capture more of that value itself. A refinery designed to process its own gold, 2 lithium mines with real estate equity, and mining revenue that is visibly, deliberately, being funneled back into communities and basic services. That's a meaningful shift, and it's happening fast enough that global markets and neighboring governments are paying close attention. What it isn't, at least not yet, is a Gulf-style transformation with new skylines, foreign investment pouring in from every direction, and a population whose daily life has been reshaped by resource wealth. The gap between resource sovereignty and economic miracle is enormous, and Mali is still standing much closer to the starting line of that gap than the finish line. But for a country that spent decades being told its resources would always benefit someone else first, simply owning a stake in its own gold refinery and its own lithium mines is already a genuine departure from the old script. If there is one honest way to frame the title of this video, it's this. Mali isn't becoming Dubai in the sense of skyscrapers and tourist skylines. It's attempting something closer to Dubai's founding logic, using a narrow window of high commodity prices and new resource discoveries to buy itself leverage, infrastructure, and equity that it can hopefully still be using long after the current gold and lithium boom eventually cools off. Whether that window gets used wisely, or whether the revenue gets absorbed by security spending and political consolidation instead, is the real story to watch over the next few years. Outro, we'll keep tracking the different elements. If you want to see how this compares to what's happening in Burkina Faso right next door, the videos are on your screen right now. See you there.